ready for Raidable Crest Titans.
Welcome to the special stage rally show in association with the Mini Rally Challenge. We've got another action-packed show coming up for you today as we head to the seaside for the latest round of the Pro Tyre Motorsport UK Asphalt Rally Championship on Rali Ceredigion. And we take a trip over the Irish Sea as well for the latest Irish Tarmac Championship action. But first, clubman rallying at its best at Trallsvinid in Wales for the Gareth Hall Memorial Stages. The Gareth Hall Stages would be the latest round of the Mini Rally Challenge and would bring the championship back onto asphalt for this round. With the usual great entry, it would be a challenging day ahead for our crews. Leading the way after the morning stages will be Jacob Neal and Russell Thompson. This pair starting to build up a bit of a reputation for finding the ditches on the stages, and this venue had plenty of those to offer, but for now they were managing to keep themselves out of trouble, leading as well by just 7 seconds after almost as many stages. Second at this stage will be Gareth Humphries and Adam Burkill. They'd started off the day with 5th and were working their way up the results as the morning went on to take that second place for now behind our rally leaders. For Gordon Davies and Jack Morris, meanwhile, it would be 3rd. That seemed like a good position at first glance, but the pair had actually been in the lead of the rally over the first few stages before a spin cost them valuable time. That drop down to 3rd was a little disappointing after such a good start. No such movement for George Clark and Stephen Moises though. They would begin the day with 4th, ending the morning in that position as well. A strong start, keeping the pace consistent throughout the morning to hold on to that position and be ready to chase for the podium. John Day and Corey Powell-Jones would take the second fastest time on stage 1, but would quickly settle into 5th on the following stage. A position that they held on to through the end of stage 6 as well, with the top of the results filled with R53 class crews. And doing it for the R50 crews will be Owen Kuehl and Matthew Walk. They lead the way as well in the class. A great start for the pair. They were just 21 seconds back from that top 5 as well. Frustratingly, it wouldn't be the best of starts for Jack Birch and Mike Jode. They put the car off the road and get it stuck as well, costing them some maximum times and putting them into Super Rally right at the bottom of the order. So with the first half of the day complete here at Trallsvinid, the results in the Mini Rally Challenge look like this. Back onto these ranges stages for the second half of the day and a look through the final results here at the Gareth Hall Memorial Rally. And with Jack Birch super rallying, it will be Kevin Ablett and Graham Child taking 10th place by the finish. A little too cautious at times over the crests, by their own admission, but they would be happy at least with the finish. It would be a good finish for Julian Fouquet and Julia Perry though, as they take 3rd in the R50 class this weekend. Julian, one of a few who had done this venue before, but only on an F1000 test day. And just ahead of them on the order will be Wesley Guilford and Andrew Millington. They take 8th place overall, 2nd in the R50 class. That class result also sees them leading the R50s at this point in the season championship tally as well. For Matt Chapman and Adam Fern, it will be 7th place. They've been in and around that position all day, a consistent drive and managing to stay out of trouble to get some valuable points on the board. And it was a great end to the rally for Owen Kuehl and Matthew Walk. Their 6th place overall was enough to give them the top spot in the R50 class, and with a good margin as well. For John Day and Corey Powell-Jones, it would be 5th. A higher position is always preferable, but the consolation is that that result puts them in 2nd place in the championship standings going to the next round. There's no change after a solid and consistent day for George Clark and Stephen Moises. A good end to the rally for the pair sees them taking that 4th place overall this weekend. Onto the podium positions, and it will be 3rd for Gareth Humphries and Adam Burkill. They'd be happy to learn that those points they gained on the stages today see them leading the Mini Rally Challenge after this round. For Gordon Davies and Jack Morris, it would be second place. The times were close throughout the day, the pair ending the rally with just 8 seconds between them and the eventual leaders. That's less than 1 second per stage over the day. But that means that Jacob Neal and Russell Thompson keep themselves out of the ditches this time, staying on the road to claim a victory. A welcomed one as well, given that the pair didn't finish without its issues. A broken shock on one of the stages, giving the pair some work to do throughout the day and get the car prepared for the next round. So with the Gareth Hall stages complete here at Trawls Vinid, the Mini Rally Challenge results at the end of the event shaped up like this.
Yeah, this feels like a good pat on the back for us. It's been a challenging year for sure. And even today we were fighting, my van broke down on the way here and then we had a shocker blow on stage 3 and 4. So we were chasing our tails all day, but we're really happy to actually get a good finish on tarmac. It's our first ever proper finish on tar, so feels good.
As well as the Mini Rally Challenge, the Gareth Hall stages would also play host to the overall rally, competing over the weekend stages. And leading the way there will be Will Rowlands and Ross Wasson. Ross winning the co-drive this weekend after a charity auction to raise money for the Welsh Air Ambulance. Fair play to Will and of course to Ross. Unfortunately, we lose Aledwyn Morgans and Martin James. The Asphalt Championship pair were flying right from the start and had led the rally over the first few stages, but they'd crash out over a notorious unseen flying finish, ending their rally with the car sitting in the riverbed. So with plenty of drama already on the cards, it would be second place for Gary Thomas and Chris Walton. They were 15 seconds back from the lead after the first half of the day, but they wouldn't be too safe in that position themselves, having to keep an eye on their metaphorical wing mirrors. Because they had just 2 seconds of a lead over third place Richard Owen Morgans and Sophie Law. The Fiesta Rally 2 pair going well. They'd even been up in second place for a couple of the stages. For Ewan Roberts and Daniel Jones, it would be fourth. They were clearly trying in places and pushing the car well. And it was always great to see a G3 Escort out on the stages being driven as intended. And making it 5 Fords in the top 5, albeit different examples, were Malcolm and Jamie Atherton. The Escort pair in 5th place to end the morning, just 17 seconds back from that G3 Escort up ahead. So with the morning complete, here's a quick look at the order from the first 6 stages of the Trawls Vinid Gareth Hall Memorial Rally. On to the afternoon stages then, and before we check on our top crews and that leaderboard overall, let's take a look at some of the class winners. And in Class 1, it will be Gareth Roberts and Robert Jones taking the top spot in their wonderful Citroën AX in 9th place overall. In Class 3, we see Bryn and Brian Jones in the Escort taking class victory from 18th overall. And Stephen John Williams and Steve Roberts would lose a little time over the morning, but they make a big push through the afternoon to take the Class 5 victory and 11th place on that overall leaderboard. It was anything but plain sailing for Gary Edgington and Gethin Sharp. They managed to overshoot one of the junctions after the stage layout was changed around, taking out some of the plastic barriers in the process. Thankfully, not doing any damage to the car, just to the timesheets, and they end the event in 8th. There's more attrition though. We frustratingly lose Ewan Roberts and Daniel Jones, the engine going on stage 9 of the event, putting an end to their entertaining run. Back to our rally finishers then, and we would see Chris Phillips and Sarah Hughes move up the order a little, bagging themselves 5th place overall. The Peugeot pair also do enough to take the Class 2 victory as well. For Malcolm and Jamie Atherton, it will be 4th place. The Escort crew a little way back from the podium, but that wasn't going to make their 4th place any less of a victory for them. 3rd place at the end of the rally will be Richard Owen Morgans and Sophie Law. They were within 24 seconds of the eventual winners by the end of the 12th and final stage of the rally. Runners-up this weekend after settling into that position later in the morning were Gary Thomas and Chris Walton, still entertaining out there on the stages to the finish of the rally. But taking a welcomed victory will be Will Rowlands and Ross Wasson. The pair had led from stage 4 and kept hold of that lead to the finish. But it wasn't an easy victory, still having to push right to the very last stage and taking victory by just 12 seconds. So with the Gareth Hall stages complete, here's a reminder of how that overall leaderboard ended up.
Oh yeah, it's been a fantastic day. Very organised event. The weather's held up, which is just the main thing, especially for the marshals, timekeepers and everything, which we can't thank them enough. Wouldn't be here without them. But yeah, we had a really good event. To come with a win in the historic car, excellent day.
The fantastic facility at Modern Tyres hosted the 2024 Ulster Rally service area, and although only a one-day format, the crews weren't underestimating the challenge ahead. Callum Devine came here with the number 1 on his door. The new car looks to be a good package, but the roads here on the Modern Tyres Ulster Rally are certainly different to Donegal.
Stages are very different, but thankfully they haven't been like the way they have been the last 2 years with the rain, because it's very slippy, a lot of dust, a lot of mud pulled out, and gravel, and the road's been so narrow, so there's a lot to take in. It's not like Donegal, as you say, so it's going to be a new rally to try and new setup, try and work with this car, so looking forward to it. As long as it's dry, we're looking forward to it.
Keith Cronin leads the championship coming into this round, but that doesn't mean the pressure's off. He would still need a good result on the remaining rounds to keep his position at the top.
These stages are so tricky, I don't know if it's the right place to go flat out from the word go, so we'll see what our pace is like in the first one and go from there.
Matt Edwards goes well on stages like this, and indeed has won the event twice in the past, but the tight and technical stages would be a challenge on a one-day event with no room for error.
There's usually some places in the stages that you think, I might just have a deep breath here and reset, but there isn't a straight more than 100 or so. So yeah, it's a frantic rally. It always has been, really.
So, as the cars are flagged away from the start ramp, let's head out to the first of the day's stages. Fastest out of the blocks were Keith Cronin and Mikey Galvin. They were in a good position in the championship and knew that they could play it safe. There was more to get out of these stages, but a good push without taking too many risks was the approach for the pair. Two-time winner of the event, Matt Edwards, with David Moynihan alongside, would struggle a little to get confidence in the stages. They might not be flat out fast, but the technical sections were causing the car to feel a little unsettled over these first 2 stages.
Repeat, opens long, okay, 250 down. Turn here for the left, wider.
Callum Devine and Noel O'Sullivan were still getting used to the new car, and with a whole different setup needed for this event, it would be a cautious start to the day, and they opted for a neat and tidy approach, a little different to the usual style from the pair. There would be no problems on the early stages for James Ford and Neil Shanks as they started the day off in 4th overall. A good opening leg meant they led the way in the Citroën Trophy as well. Josh Moffat and Andy Hayes struggled a little on the first stages. They left the braking a little too late in one place and ended up off the road and in a field. Thankfully, with minimal damage and time lost, they would still reach the end of stage 2 in 5th overall. Eddie Doherty and Tom Murphy didn't feel like they were committed enough on the opening test, and a puncture on the second stage didn't help matters either. They didn't lose too much time though and were in 6th going into service. Jason Dixon and Martin Brady hadn't been out in a while, so this weekend there were no expectations. They were going well in 7th place, but were another crew to pick up a puncture in the second stage of the day. John McCrone and Kirsty Riddick had made the trip over from Scotland. Their aim was to just slowly try and get on the pace with the leaders as the event went on, and 8th place was certainly a good start to that plan by the end of stage 2. Steve Wood and Kenny Hull were fastest of the National Rally competitors so far. They guided their Citroën to 9th overall after stage 2 and were enjoying the stages. Rounding out the top 10 overall with the leading modified crew of Jason Black and Carl Egan. They were struggling a little with the tyres going off after opting for a softer tyre due to a threat of rain that never came. They would be glad for service now to sort that out, but at least they'd still managed to set the early pace in the modifieds.
2 right and flat 1 left, and Carecrest 3 left, 40, 3 right, 1 left.
Second in the modified battle and just behind on the overall results were Damien Toner and Adon Gallagher. They would be happy enough with that for now and still had 8 more stages to try and push the starlet pair up ahead. Ollie Benton and Kyle Diffin were another crew taking the wrong tyres, opting for a medium instead of hard. They were still having a good run though and were 3rd at this stage in the modifieds. Sadly for Frank and Lauren Kelly, their fight at the top of the modifieds would be over before it started. A puncture on stage 1 seeing them down in 47th place overall and a couple of minutes off the lead, but they were still going and wouldn't let that stop them from pushing on the next batch of stages. In the RC4 class, the early leaders were Keir Caldwell and Liam Egan. They had a few small issues though and wouldn't be overly happy with their start to the day. A bigger lead would have been preferred. In fact, any lead at all would have been good, the pair actually having to share the lead with Aoife Rafferty and Hannah McKillop, who finished stage 2 on exactly the same overall time. The pair here this weekend for a bit of seat time on the asphalt, ahead of their ERC campaign on Rali Ceredigion in Wales in a few weeks' time. 3rd place in that fight would be John O'Rourke and Jack Kennedy, just 6 seconds back from those leading crews at this early stage. So, with just 2 of the 10 challenging stages complete here on Modern Tyres Ulster Rally, the results at the top looked like this.
Keith, it's tight margins, but you took the lead there on stage 2.
Yeah, we did. Just trying to keep it clean and tidy and no mistakes. Really tricky out there. So we'll see now. Next loop, it's all changing now with the weather. So yeah, it's going to be even trickier.
Matt, leader after the first stage, the margins are so fine. Back into 2nd place on stage 2, but now the rain's down. It's going to make it interesting.
Yeah, it's. We hope this wouldn't happen really. Because we had a bit of a stress-free day, was hopeful, but yeah, good first stage. I mean, probably felt I went a bit better in the second one, to be honest, but yeah, the car's feeling good, the rhythm was good, but obviously now, I was to say the rain's come down, so we've got a bit of a decision to make.
On to the next loop of stages, and the big news would be the loss of 2nd place Matt Edwards and David Moynihan. They went into stage 3 just 2.4 seconds down on the leaders, but the Fiesta pair were a little wide on one corner and clipped the back wheel on a tree. The damage to the car meant that they would need to pull over a little further into the stage to prevent any further damage.
80. Sorry. 5 right, not your fault.
So that made life a little easier for Keith Cronin and Mikey Galvin, but only a little. They still had to watch out behind them, and a wrong tyre choice on this loop wasn't going to help with that. Their lead by the event's midpoint was just 17 seconds.
How was it in there?
Really tricky. We were still on the soft tyre. I saw Callum had brought 2 spares of a harder tyre. But we just tried to manage it and take note, just be careful and tight, if not try to overheat the tyre and drive on where we could.
And as you heard from Keith at the end of stage 5, Callum Devine and Noel O'Sullivan had also come out on the wrong tyre for this loop. But with 2 spares in the car, they had a little more choice of setup for the second half of this loop, although it did make the car a little unsteady in places.
Callum, stage 5, how was it?
Tricky stage. I went with a cross tyre and that, with like a really soft, with a full wet sort of thing, that tyre, and
You changed your tyres at the start of the stage, yeah?
yeah, I changed the start of the stage, so it's a cross, so the balance is a wee bit off, and I got caught out one time in a corner, I had a big slide, this side broke away with the saw.
James Ford and Neil Shanks had a lucky escape on stage 3 when they clipped a gate post. Thankfully, despite the scare, it was only cosmetic damage. and they were able to continue now up into the podium positions as well. Josh Moffat and Andy Hayes took a gamble with the tyres, which worked for the second half of the loop as the pair were able to put in some good times. But a puncture on stage 3 affected the overall progress, although they were still positive as they ended the loop in 4th.
Tricky there, Josh. Yeah, we slid into a ditch there on a tight corner. We had to reverse back, but probably lost a bit of time, but it is what it is.
Eddie Doherty and Tom Murphy were still trying to get through without any mistakes, and they were happy enough with how it was going. They ended the morning in 5th overall. Jason Dixon and Martin Brady were going better than they expected. Having not been out for a while, they were happy to be settled into the top 10 at this stage, although a small feeling of power loss in the car was a growing concern. John McCrone and Kirsty Riddick were continuing their plan of getting a little faster each time out, and it was working on the whole, but the damp conditions on stage 3 had set them back a little. They ended the morning in 7th. Jason Black and Carl Egan would still be leading the way in the modifieds and were now up to an impressive 8th overall. They did have an issue with the brakes sticking on through stage 4, but it didn't seem to be holding them back too much.
Hi, Grant, yeah, warm. A lot drier in there, like, so it is. Probably could have did a harder tire, but it's hard to, you just need to compromise there in that loop. So it is. Hopefully the weather's dry now the rest of the evening and we'll get a better tire choice. So we'll be happy with that.
Steve Wood and Kenny Hull confessed to having lost concentration a little after service, and it took a little time to get back into it. They lay in 9th place overall for now. And moving up to round out our top 10 overall was the second of our modified crews, Damien Toner and Adon Gallagher. They were glad to get out of the damp stage 3 and into more familiar grip levels in the next 2, but a misfire would need looking at in service. Still in 3rd, but now up to 11th overall, were Ollie Benton and Kyle Diffin. They were on the wrong tyres, but were actually lent some by Damien Toner, underlining the great sportsmanship in the modified championship between those podium contenders.
We took wets and a soft, totally wrong, bone dry. Damien Toner, class sportsman, he lent me his spare medium, so we've got soft mediums now. He's fighting for a championship, but he's still happy to lend the tyre, you know, it's really good.
After the morning's issues, it was very much a climb up the overall results for Frank and Lauren Kelly. They were doing what they could to stay in the championship fight, and the day wasn't over yet. There would be a change in the RC4 class. Aoife Rafferty and Hannah McKillop had been on the identical time at the top, but now they led the way on their own, first in class and 28th overall for the pair. So that put Cian Caldwell and Liam Egan into second. It was around 14 seconds difference, the pair still getting used to the car on the asphalt and wishing the stages were all dry so that they could push. There would be no change to 3rd place in this loop of stages. John O'Rourke and Jack Kennedy were in that position, although only 11 seconds back from Caldwell for now. A quick look at the historics, and the leaders were Ray Breen and Damien Morrissey, the pair opening up a good lead there as well by the midpoint in the event. Second of the historic crews at this stage would be Hugh McQuaid and Martin Byrne in the Escort, having occupied that place from stage 1. In 3rd place were Thomas Davis and Anthony O'Sullivan. They were a little untidy in the first 2 by their own admission, in fact ending stage 1 in 4th, but they tidied things up by the end of the loop to lie in 3rd. So, with the first half of the event complete, it was all change at the top, as the 3-horse race had become a 2-horse race, and with only 17 seconds between them, it would be all to play for in the afternoon. On then to the afternoon stages, and with repeated stages comes a higher risk from debris pulled out on the previous pass. But for Keith Cronin and Mikey Galvin, thankfully there would be no issues. They were cautious where they needed to be, and so managed their lead going into the final stages of the event. Unfortunately for Callum Devine and Noel O'Sullivan, the gap was getting a little bigger. Not by much, but it was going the wrong way to be challenging for the win. They knew they had to be sensible though, and finishing second would be better than ending the event in a hedge. There was disappointment for 3rd place James Ford and Neil Shanks. They were pushing hard, claiming their first fastest time in the process, but a prop shaft issue would ultimately put an end to their event on this loop after such a great first half of the event. So that would promote Josh Moffat and Andy Hayes up to third now. And importantly for them, it meant they were now the first Citroën. They just needed to keep their noses clean over the final stages and the podium would be theirs. Eddie Doherty and Tom Murphy were also on the move up the results. They were finding the conditions a little slippery in places, but they weren't taking any silly risks. The return to the stages was going well for Jason Dixon and Martin Brady. They knew there was more to come from the car and themselves, but they wanted to make sure they managed the pace and didn't push too hard before they were ready. John McCrone and Kirsty Riddick made a good tyre choice on this loop, happy with how things were going and happy with the performance of the car as well. They were now in 6th, but maybe too far back to make a push for any further places. It was a similar story for Steve Wood and Kenny Hull. They were unlikely to make up the 47 seconds to McCrone ahead, but that wasn't their problem. The charging car behind them was. And that was the first of the modified crews, Jason Black and Carl Egan. They were having an issue with the gear change, but despite that they were lying in 8th overall and just 2.4 seconds back from Wood. Damien Toner and Adon Gallagher seemed to have got the misfire sorted. They were now up to 9th place on the overall standings and holding on to that 2nd place in the modifieds. No change to 3rd in that class as well for Ollie Benton and Kyle Diffin, now rounding off the top 10 overall as well. So with just 3 more stages to go, the results at the top were all changed once again. But for rally leaders Cronin and Galvin, it was looking good for the win, if the pair could stay out of trouble.
Keith, 7 stages down, 3 stages remaining. Not an easy mix of conditions today, so you can't even relax. You've just over 20 seconds. Tyre choice is still probably a talking point.
Yeah, it's been a tough rally. We knew it would be from the start. 20 seconds is a nice lead, but it's not much with these conditions. And like the second pass over these stages now, there'll be a lot of gravel pulled out and stuff. So look, still a long way to go. Trying to manage everything, not take too big a risk. But as I said, that doesn't matter. You can still get caught out.
Callum, it's just not going the right direction. It's 20 odd seconds. You're trying your hardest, but obviously it's a fine line between taking time and going off.
Yeah, it keeps going hard, to be fair to him. You can't take that away from him. But yeah, the weather kind of keeps changing on us all the time. Every time we went back out there that line, we made the car a lot more racier. We thought it was going to be bone dry. We says we need to make a change to try and make some inroads. We landed out and sure, it was raining. But look, we're happy enough. We're pushing on rightly. To be fair, it's a couple of seconds here and there again. It's just, as you say, in the wrong direction that we need. But yeah, we'll just have to keep the head down for the next 3 and see what happens.
Josh, you're up to 3rd position, 3 stages remaining. It's a really difficult event.
Yeah, it sure is, and I suppose the stages alone are very tricky, but the weather's been making it 10 times worse there. So yeah, look at 3 to go, and we just need to try and keep our nose clean and get through them at this stage.
Jason, you're under a bit of pressure.
Aye, well, a few problems still with the gear chain, so we're trying to get it sorted and just picking tyres, using the rest of the scrap up.
Yeah, you have a decent lead there. Yeah, you don't have to do anything special.
No, just get around here now, so we aren't doing anything stupid. The main thing.
On to the final loop of the event then, and our modified fight, and it would be 10th for Gareth Black and Connor Dunlop, enough to get them 3rd in the modified battle this weekend. There would be a change in those results though, as we lost Jason Black and Carl Egan, the prop shaft breaking on stage 8, putting them out of the event. Frank and Lauren Kelly weren't where they wanted to be in the battle, but they did get a finish that keeps their championship hopes alive, and that was the best they could ask for after the morning's problems. Ollie Benton and Kyle Diffin had problems of their own, but thankfully they were all okay by the finish, and the pair were able to take 2nd place in the modifieds and 9th overall. Cal McCarthy and Eric Calnan started the day off with a couple of overshoots on stage 1, and since then they'd been working their way up the results. They managed to get themselves up as high as 8th place overall at the finish. With the loss of Black, the modified win went to Damien Toner and Adon Gallagher. You never want to take a win that way, but of course in rallying you have to get to the finish, so they'd be happy to add some good points to the total from this round. Steve Wood and Kenny Hull kept themselves out of trouble all day to end the event with 6th place overall, a good result, and one that sees Steve 2nd in the Citroens and claiming some prize money in the process. Unfortunately, the drama among the top 10 hadn't finished just yet. We lost Jason Dixon and Martin Brady when they made a small mistake on this crest, and the back end of the car hit the tree. With too much damage to the car, they would be forced to pull over soon afterwards, putting an end to what could have been a good result for the pair. John McCrone and Kirsty Riddick would be more than happy with their rally. They came here with the plan of getting closer to the leaders, and 5th place overall certainly wasn't a bad result for the pair. Another crew happy with their result this weekend were Eddie Doherty and Tom Murphy. No issues to report for the pair as they got settled in throughout the day and put in some great times to take 4th place overall at the finish. On to the podium places, and Josh Moffat and Andy Hayes found themselves in no man's land a little, unable to really gain any places and looking safe enough in 3rd. It was a good end to the event, and the pair took some decent prize money in the Citroën C3 trophy as well. Unfortunately, there was nothing more that Callum Devine and Noel O'Sullivan could do over the final loop. They took a little time from the leaders, but it wasn't enough. 2nd place, however, wasn't a bad result at all, and the pair added some more points to their championship total. But adding a win to their tally were Keith Cronin and Mikey Galvin. They kept it together on the final loop, backing off a little, but realising they could get caught and pushed on once again. The win strengthened the championship hopes for the pair, and they'll go to Cork with the ball very much in their court. So, with the Modern Tyres Ulster Rally drawing to a close, and before we chat to our winner at the finish, here's a reminder of how those overall results were decided.
We had a great start to the championship. It's just a few things went against us in the middle of the season, but it was great to get the win here again on possibly some of the most challenging stages of the year. So much happening out there to catch us out, so it was good not to make any mistakes.
Rali Ceredigion sees the Pro Tyre Motorsport UK Asphalt Rally Championship crews take on their biggest challenge of the season, with 2.5 days of Welsh road rally stages ahead of them and some stiff competition on the entry. This explosive weekend for UK motorsport kicked off with 2 short blasts around the streets of Aberystwyth. The fans out in force before the action in the National Rally got underway. They were treated to some demonstration runs of the Puma Rally 1 World Rally Car, driven by Matt Wilson from M Sport. And when the action did get underway, it would be a new name topping the timesheets in the Pro Tyre Championship. Sam Touzle and Max Freeman go into the overnight halt with a 1.5 second advantage, and the Jersey man was delighted. That lead was over a hard-charging championship contender Neil Roskell. Rob Fagg in with him this weekend, the pair here to try and keep their respective championship hopes alive into the final round of the season. And of course, that fight would be with reigning champions Callum Black and Jack Morton. The pair would be 3rd place over the short Friday night stages and were just 0.7 of a second back from Roskell up ahead. Kevin and Owen Davies hadn't had a full championship campaign this season, but they've been impressive when we had seen them. A championship result they're not on the cards, but an event one could be. The pair just 3.6 seconds back from Black, ahead in 4th place now. And we'd also see a long-awaited return to the stages for Dylan Davies with Michael Gilby alongside. The pair looking strong in 5th place on the opening 2 tests, and Gilby delighted to be on his home roads. So just a short blast on day 1 of Rali Ceredigion, and already a great battle forming as we go into the longer stages of day 2. On to the 2nd day of action, and it was a long one, including the longest stage of the rally at 26 kilometres. But with the competition close, there would still be no room for backing off and taking things easy. For Callum Black and Jack Morton, it would be a big push right from the start of the day, enough to open out what could be classed as a pretty decent margin of 2.5 minutes. Neil Roskell and Rob Fagg weren't having the easiest of days, but they knew what they had to do, and that was to get to the finish with some points on the board to keep their championship hopes alive. They continued to push the leaders as much as they could, ending the day 2nd place, ideal for keeping some pressure on into the final day of the rally. For our overnight leaders, Sam Touzle and Max Freeman, it would be 3rd place to end the 2nd day. But that still wasn't something to be sniffed at. Not only had the pace increased for the Jersey driver, But this pair weren't without the issues themselves, damaging the front corner of the car and needing to do some repairs by the end of the day to keep going. Things just hadn't gone to plan this weekend for Kevin and Owen Davies after that strong opening night. We lose the pair in stage 6. They pick up too many punctures throughout the morning stages, unable to continue. In an impressive 4th place, it will be the first of the rear-wheel drive crews, the escort pair of Ian Evans and Gareth Parry. Even with a 10-second penalty, they were able to sit just outside the podium positions and hold their own against the 4-wheel drive machinery around them. And one of those 4-wheel drive machines fighting for the results was the one of Dylan Davies and Michael Gilby. They were still going strong, and you wouldn't know that they'd been away from the stages either 5th place for now on their local event. Gareth Edwards and Moy Williams would be one of the only Darians left after a number of them started and hadn't made it this far. They were lying in 6th place and were a minute back from the Skoda pair up ahead. 2nd place in the M5 class as well. And 3rd in that class were Hugh James and Lewis Sim, the pair fighting for the Pro Tyre Championship points, and it was looking good for them at this stage as they end the first full day of stages with 7th overall. For Gareth Thomas and Ryan Thomas Hands, it would be the lead in the historic crews. The H1 class pair leading the way there and in a fantastic 8th place overall, and they were never in a straight line. All Darren Atkinson and Phil Sandham needed to do this weekend was finish, and Darren would take that B13 championship title. So it was about playing things a little safer than usual, pushing where they could, and they end the morning 9th place overall, doing exactly what they set out to do in the brief. Meanwhile, rounding out the top 10 at this stage were Gordon Cunningham and Stuart McManus, the Evo pair, adding some more variety to the top of our leaderboard as well. There was disappointment inside the Darien for John Dalton and Gwynfor Jones. They'd hit a bank on stage 4. That wasn't the reason for retirement, however. The driver feeling unwell by the end of the day, the crew forced to retire. They'd been in an impressive 5th overall at times through the day. We'd also lose Will Rowlands and Emir Hall. The Gareth Hall rally winner had been high on confidence and in 11th place overall here, but an uncharacteristic mistake puts them into a ditch and out of the rally on stage 5. There'd also be issues for Will Mains and Thomas Whittle. They have a moment on the same section of stage that caught out Dalton in the Darien. The impact with the bank wouldn't appear to have done that much damage. The usually immaculate Nova, perhaps with a few battle scars. The pair, though, would be forced to call it a day on the road section away from the stage. So a long, gruelling day 2 is complete here on fantastic roads in Aberystwyth. The results at the top are shaping up like this.
Callum, what a weekend for you. I know you're always very modest about these things, but you can afford to smile because you really have been blistering this weekend, haven't you?
Yeah, it's been a great week. Well, great day, great weekend. Obviously, we've still got to go tomorrow, but Jack and I have really enjoyed it, and stages are awesome. It's hard because obviously when you do get a bit of a lead, you have to try rein it back a little bit. And naturally, with the stages so inviting, you want to push on. So
well, tell us about that, because you didn't train yourself and hone these skills in order to drive at medium pace, do you?
Well, I guess not, no, and ultimately when you back off a little bit you lose that little bit of concentration, so it's a hard one, but we've sort of learnt to control it. It's been quite a nice problem to have.
Neil, you are brutally honest at times, and I could see the frustration today at the end of stage 7 because you know you've given yourself a harder job than you perhaps had to as we go towards the conclusion of this championship, but you're still in it and fighting.
Yeah, it's not over till it's over, is it? I've got to just keep pushing. When you look at today, Callum's leaps ahead of me. You know, he's pulling 2 seconds a mile out of me. The lad's flying. I can't knock him for his ability. I've just got to keep going now, keep my head down. And if somebody makes a mistake, then I can, you know, utilise from it. But yeah, I'm like that now. I've just got to keep pushing, keep this 2nd place. And hopefully by tomorrow night we can, you know, pick up these championship points, what we need realistically. And then it goes to the final round.
Sam, you've been proving yourself all year in this championship, and after last night, I don't think you've got anything left to prove. You are well and truly among the top crop here. You led overnight. It's not been the best of days for you, but I know, talking to you earlier, it's left some confidence in there.
Yeah, it's definitely a building block with how today's gone. This morning I knew that Callum and Neil were going to take time out of me because special stage, again, I won a stage just before. So that's two. And it's just a building block. After hitting it, losing all confidence, the next stage I was down. I wasn't interested in giving it push. He's like, you're braking too much. So then I had to have a word with myself. And then the last one back towards here, we pushed hard and we took back more time out of Neil. But it's this championship, there's so many fast guys. And to come from somewhere that isn't got these kind of cars into this mix, it's just something else, and it's so enjoyable. Obviously not quite today, but I'm still happy, I'm still grateful to be here, and everyone's pushing hard.
On to the final day of Rali Ceredigion then, and certainly no easy ride for our crews. Many more stage miles to go, 57 kilometres in all on today's itinerary. And before we check out the overall results, here's a quick look at some of the class runners. In 37th place overall, it would be Gareth Jones and Thomas Hughes, the pair taking the M3 class win. It wasn't the weekend that Will Hill and Richard Crozier had wanted. They put the car off the road and into a ditch in dramatic fashion earlier in the rally, and we're out in Super Rally now. But despite the setback, the Hills Ford pair were able to do enough in that Fiesta Rally 3 to bag themselves the B14 class win in the championship, taking the pressure off them on their home round, the Hills Ford stages, where they will return as champions in a few weeks' time. It would end up being a pretty good weekend for Nicky Addison and Ian Thorburn. They had a good season behind them, and this weekend would see Nicky claim the Ladies Drivers' Championship title in the Pro Tyre Championship for the season. In the M1 class, it would be a strong result for Charlie Tuttle and Ben Wild. Limited experience on the stages wasn't showing. The pair get through the entire rally to take that impressive class win in 31st position overall. Entertainers of the rally would be a hard one to pick this weekend, but Class M7 winners Chris Hand and Izzy Holman were certainly up there. The pair throwing that brand new built KP60 Toyota Starlet around everywhere that they could. And whoever said Sideways wasn't fast had clearly not seen Chris Hand in action. He's used to doing these roads in the dark, but he's pretty good in the daylight as well, taking the class win as well as 19th overall. Rory and Paul McCann do everything that they need to do in the class this weekend. They were giant killing right to the finish as well in that little Civic. They take the M2 class win, and in the championship that would translate to the B10 trophy for the season. Nathan Evans and Rhys Edwards were enjoying the stages this weekend and enjoying throwing that Renault Clio around. They were impressive out there on the stages, taking the M4 class win and getting themselves into 16th overall by the finish of the rally. We're on to the all-important top 10 leaderboard then, at perhaps one of the biggest rallies this year in the UK. And still looking at some of our class winners, taking the H1 class win, as well as 10th overall, with Gareth Thomas and Ryan Thomas Hands in that Escort. That, of course, means it's a place gained today for Gordon Cunningham and Stuart McManus. They end the rally 9th place overall in the Evo. Darren Atkinson and Phil Sandham do exactly what they came here to do, getting the finish with 8th place overall. That would be enough to seal Darren the B13 title in the championship for the second time this season. But beating them to the top step on the Pro Tyre two-wheel drive podium will be Hugh James and Lewis Sim. Another cracking result for the Escort pair. They take 7th overall as well in the National Rally and are delighted with that victory. They may have been the highest placed Pro Tyre two-wheel drive crew, but they weren't the highest placed two-wheel drive crew overall. And neither were Gareth Edwards and Moy Williams. They'd have to settle for 2nd place. The Day 3 changing conditions were far from ideal for the Darien crew, just like the TV crew, as it happens. But they get through in one piece in 6th overall. It had been a good weekend and a strong return to the stages for Dylan Davies and Michael Gilby. They take 5th place to end the event this weekend. They'd also be the highest placed non-Ford on the leaderboard in that Skoda. Ian Evans and Gareth Parry then continue to hold that strong position, ending the event with the Class M5 win. The Escort pair really mixing up the order. They'd be more than happy with this finish, the fastest two-wheel drive car and just outside the podium positions in 4th overall. On to those podium places then, hard fought as they had been over this marathon rally, 184 kilometres this weekend on these lanes, and it would be third for Sam Touzle and Max Freeman. A great result for the pair, a massive improvement in pace since the start of the season. That result adding their names to the list of possible contenders in 2025 should they return for a full title campaign. And they'd also be looking at a Jersey Rally result in a few weeks' time on home soil for Sam as well. Neil Roskell and Rob Fagg, despite making the job a little bit harder for themselves at times, do what they needed to do this weekend. They keep the championship alive. This second place, keeping Neil in the title hunt overall. And for Rob, it makes it a close battle on the final round to fight for second and third places in the co-drivers' standings. And the reason that there'd only be a fight for second and third in the co-drivers' standings is because for Jack Morton, it would be victory. He takes the title this weekend. Now, a triple asphalt rally champion. But for his driver, Callum Black, the fight goes on. One more round lies in wait. And whilst in a promising position, it was still going to be a tough end to the season on the Hills Ford stages in just 2 weeks' time. So as the longest and perhaps most highly anticipated round of the championship draws to a close and the tired crews head for home, here's a look at how the final results were decided here on the National Rally at Rali Ceredigion.
It never really looked like being in doubt from a very early stage, Callum, but that doesn't mean it was easy, right?
No, it's hard work that last stage. It's my favourite stage of the rally, and I said to Dad at the start of the week, I want to have a push in there, but when you get to the start of it and you look at the bigger picture, it's important just to get through that. So, really enjoyable stage, just a shame we couldn't push in some ways, but can't really complain with the result, so we're happy.
Jack takes the co-driver championship. With that, you take the drivers' championship to the final round. You give us a final round showdown.
Yeah, no, Jack's a triple champion now. I don't think he knows that though, so delighted for him. Yeah, and bring on 3 shires.
So that's it for this episode of the Special Stage Rally Show in association with the Mini Rally Challenge. You can join us live throughout September on our various platforms, and we'll be back with more rally action on the first Friday of October. We'll see you then. Thank you for watching.
Care 40 for Raidable Crest Titans.